Welcome to another episode of the Cheerful Soundman podcast. It's a weekly show for event professionals to hear from other event professionals on the challenges and lessons of producing stellar events with a smile. I'm Eric, the owner of Bunt Backline Event Services, an event company right here in Gainesville, Florida. Go Gators. Today we're talking to Devin Gregory of Christie Lights and formerly Swag Decor, maybe
Swag
currently
Rose
still,
Brand,
and Rose Brand. And I wanted to have him on. He's got a unique insight both of building a brand, Swag Decor, and selling it, as well as now his experience with a bigger company, Christie Lights, a multinational company. So can't wait to chat about that. But before we dive in, make sure you follow us on Instagram at The Cheerful Soundman. And all right, let's dive in. Welcome to the show. And tell us, just give us like the 2-minute or less, like who you are, where you come from, what you do, sort of thing.
So Devin Gregory, Christie Lights, formerly Rose Brand, Swag Decor. Originally from Key West, moved to Central Florida. I've been in the event industry since 2003-ish. Company-wise, was with Quest, was with some festivals, Quest Drape. I did festivals, Bonnaroo, Coachella, Electric Forest, Gentlemen of the Road. Did some stints in AFR, which was previously a furniture company called, what was the name of that? What was it before? Anyway, but it became AFR, which is American Furniture Rental,
Okay.
and they grew. They're a pretty big deal.
So a lot of decor and furniture.
Yeah, a lot of decor,
background,
furniture, and then that's kind of what segued us into Swag Decor, and Swag Decor grew, sold to Rose Brand, and COVID happened, and then life changed. So
yeah,
that's where we are now.
I like that. That's a good quick intro. So what initially compelled you to actually get into production as a whole, like the decor and production world? Like, what was the draw?
So initially, it's kind of not exciting. So when I moved to Orlando from Key West, I had a friend when we worked out at LA Fitness. We were in the basketball courts. His brother was one of the founders of Quest Drape. This was in its infancy when it originally was I think Dallas Drape or Texas Drape or some small company, and then they decided to get Quest, and then Atlanta Drape came. Long story. So Orlando was going to be their second market, just starting out. I mean, this is 2002, 2003.
For those who don't know, Quest Drape is
I'm sorry.
absolutely
gigantic. Quest Drape is gigantic.
Now.
So
huge
their
company.
business plan changed over time as they changed ownership, then changed another ownership, and then it kind of became a conglomerate. And
so you met them when they were just
one
shop
pretty
becoming
one or two owners.
And you met.
And Lamarck Pavaldo was the owner of that particular branch, and his brother was just out and around. Was trying to get some brother-in-law. Was out just looking for. He had just moved here, and he was looking for employees. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. The kind of key factor that brought me in, I'm a young kid, high school, and they were paying, I think, $15 an hour, 3-hour minimum.
Okay.
Right? So in anybody who knows events, especially old school, they're usually small jobs.
Yeah.
In the drape world, if you're good at it, you can set a job 100 feet in, depending on what it is, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Exactly. It takes longer to get there than it is to set it up. So, and I didn't know that at the time. I'm just young. I'm like, $15, whatever. This was before $15 was the minimum wage.
That was a fortune
right,
in 2003.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, I was like, you know what? Let's do it. I didn't really have anything tying me down. It was, it was in high school. It wasn't a big deal. So it was a job that I didn't have any constraints. He calls me. I say yes or no. I show up. It's cool places. It's a world, and I feel in the event world back then, nobody really knew what it was. Yes, of course, you had events. You had minimal events. You had birthday parties that were high end. That you had the wedding situation happening. You had the theatrical end, but it was nothing like it is now. Nothing like it was 10 years ago. So I'm like, you know what? Let's do this. My first job was actually at Kennedy Space Center. So I just moved here.
Also
I don't have
cool.
anything.
Yeah, that's a fun start
badass.
as a teenager.
I was like, what the hell? You know what I mean? We were in that big facility that's on like Transformers or whatever. And we set up like 30 feet of blue drape. I'm like, okay, cool. and I got my minimum, got cool stuff.
Like I worked for like 45 minutes,
exactly.
and I just got paid for 3 hours.
So
This
it's
is
awesome. So that kind of progressed, and I brought in like everything else. I brought in my buddy, and then that grew, and then he brought in his buddy, and then before you know it, we're busy. Before you know it, even worse, to maybe the dismay of my mother, I started skipping school to do better jobs and bigger jobs. Shit happens. But I was like, man, this is cool. This is like legit cool. It's something different. I don't want to work at Denny's or McDonald's or Walmart or Target or these other jobs. No offense to anybody who does, not a big deal.
Right,
working is working, especially nowadays. But it was something that allowed me to be me and do everything that I wanted to do on the side. And that's kind of the quicker version of how I got into the event world.
Okay, so doing drape.
Yeah, absolutely. Just drape, and then that segued into Room Service, which was the name of that furniture company that then moved into AFR. But yeah, that's how that opened the door for a lot of different things. Opened up to a world that I didn't even know existed.
Okay.
So.
And you said, I know this. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about swag and how that came about. So what? First of all, what was swag or is swag?
So, oh man, we're gonna go down some rabbit holes. So, Swag Decor is a special event design company. So, we specialize in soft goods. So there's
being drapes.
Yeah, drape. Anything.
What else would fall under soft goods?
Truss covers, stage covers, custom chandeliers that are fabric related. We have one of the main products within Swag is our drum shades. So it's a metal frame that's got a customizable skin on the outside. When you break it down, it's very simple, but the fact, right? What makes
kind of like the globes with lights in them and things like that.
Things like that.
But maybe on a bigger scale or fancier.
Exactly. And what sets Swag apart, which is like any good company, like you guys, anybody can do lighting. Anybody can set drape. The key is how well do you do it, right? And it's not just a quality product, which coincides with good, but it's customer service, accountability, how fast you are to reply, how fast you are setting the job, how fast you are to, if something goes wrong, can you fix it?
I know a lot of guys on that topic that work with, they don't necessarily have like the latest and greatest or highest end gear, but they do all those other things. And as long as your gear works and is clean, a lot of times it's not necessarily like, you don't have to have the shiniest fancy toys. You have to, the execution is what's as or more important.
I know personally, in getting back into the lighting world, I know people that are LDs that have old gear that are phenomenal.
Yeah,
and
their
guys
shows
with
look
new
fantastic.
gear, right? Their shows are fantastic. Guys with new gear that they don't necessarily know how to use the old and new gear. Hey, I get it; it happens. But so on the Swag end is special events, soft good related. We have chandeliers and have a lot of that stuff like that. But it's really broken off into two segments. Special event, which is like luxury, like social, ultra luxury, social weddings, luxury weddings, social, which is big time birthday parties. The party end of corporate, and then a lot of the corporate end. So people who work with scenic companies.
And I imagine with Swag, it's probably a lot of like the higher end.
Yeah,
events.
well, there's and that's when we discuss the growth of Swag. When we started out, I mean, if we want to talk about that, when we started out, so I had a Dodge 1500, and when we started, that was it. We literally, and I have photos that we set shows out of the back of that Dodge. Now, to some people that are starting out a company, I don't necessarily suggest it. You always got to start somewhere, right? I definitely am a proponent of big things have small beginnings, and I can attest to that. But the great thing when we were starting out is we did a good job of, I don't want to say we're magicians, but we do a real good job of kind of moving your eye away from the inner workings of how something is.
Right.
We would show up to a site. We'd be at the Science Center in Orlando doing a fairly decent job, what we thought at that time. And in my opinion, all jobs are good. It's, it's the level of complexity that sets them apart. But when you show up to a job for 100 feet and you're in a Dodge 1500, that's a well-used Dodge.
Right. It's not a fresh off the lot Dodge.
That thing, you know what I mean? It wasn't the Lariat version or whatever, the Bighorn, whatever the Dodge is. But yeah, we show up and got the hardware sticking out the back. This
Yep.
was prior to
yeah.
bags and stuff like that. We're plastic wrapping stuff, and we show up and we're like, hey, you know, you're presentable. You're saying boom, boom, boom. Nobody really asks questions when you know what you're talking about, right? So we would set it, and we did that for a long time. And
Can I one up you there?
Oh, okay,
So
yeah.
when we started out, no kidding, 93 teal Ford Taurus.
Oh, a car.
Car
that is
with
a
a roof
one-upper.
rack.
That is a one-upper.
And a 5x8 trailer on the back that made the Taurus sit like this, like full-on V in the back. Every gas station I went in and out of went, I took up pavement.
When we upgraded to the trailer, I got a funny story with that. But yeah.
So we would do this, and the first time, and it's the whole like I don't know what I don't know thing. I'm just trying to make it without spending a bunch of money on a truck
Right.
because I'm trying to make mine's a side hustle at the time. I'm trying to make a living. And the first time I really was like self-conscious of it, we pulled up and we were working for a band that we'd worked with a bunch of time. You know, our gear, everything execution-wise looked like top notch,
Right,
absolutely
right.
perfect. But we pull up to like a country club in my 93 Ford Taurus in the early 2000s. So a little dated.
Yeah, but country,
dragging my trailer into the driveway. And that's the first time I was like, and I'm looking around and there's all these like, fancy sports cars and valet and everything. I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like
not
we're
necessarily
fitting the
a good
part
look.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't the best look. We look like the Clampetts pulling up here, But I still didn't buy a truck right after that. I still saved.
well, hey.
Because then I bought one cash. It was great. But anyway,
Yeah, that's the key.
Keep going.
So yeah, no, we did a lot of jobs in the beginning, and it was hard. It was like aside from the logistics end, just not knowing. I mean, there were times we didn't take paychecks. There were there were any company that has, luckily in the soft good end, there's not a lot of overhead. It obviously takes money to make money, but there was hard times in the beginning. There's a lot of my friends when I'm playing softball. I'm a huge softball fan. I play softball, but there were times where I would be in the truck with the gear going to a softball tournament that coincides with where the show's going to be.
Right.
And this even progressed into when we had trucks, but like all my friends knew, hey, we're committed. We're fully committed to growing this, and we want to do the best you can, and you have to sacrifice. And you just got to dictate what those sacrifices are. My wife would very much attest to that, and then have other things to say, but yeah.
Same boat. I've got 3 kids and
oh, I can't even imagine the kid.
Like full disclosure, like 5 years or so ago, just about lost my marriage because it was so focused on growing and so focused on, trying to keep things running, and which, then you get into that mentality of like, this is for them, but then it's, in a lot of ways it's not, and that, there's this tension, and that's a whole nother thing as well, and luckily we're in like a much better place with all of it now, but, it's definitely, it's not the same as having just a job that you can go home from.
Right.
It's a totally different animal that's all consuming, really.
Yeah, when you're like, if anybody is watching this that's starting a company, the biggest thing, there's gonna be shortcomings. There's gonna be problems. The key is one, trusting yourself, but also trusting that the product you're putting in front of people is genuine and good, right? And good is obviously subjective, but like trusting in your product and trusting in yourself, obviously they kind of coincide. But once you have those things, it's going to come with time. Now, the real key is, can you afford the time? That's really, that's
how long can you hold your breath
how
for,
long?
yeah.
Right? Can you do it? But yeah, so swag, it just steadily grew and grew, and exactly like the Quest model, we started to get more jobs. We started to hire more people. We started to hire more product or buy more product, and just kept going and growing and growing. And it's really cool. We got really lucky. So when our first warehouse was fairly small, but where we leased was a phenomenal owner, and that owner ended up turning into a really great friend. And as Swag grew and grew into Rosebrand, we actually moved into 5 offices within his same complex. So we literally grew, from
Just kept
4,000,
taking the next office
8,000,
over. Yeah.
15,000, 18,000, 21,000, and then got there was a lot of things that, and that's another thing, plan accordingly. Don't don't start open a lease if you can't. Like, there's got to be, obviously there's luck, there's foreshadowing, but look and see how busy you think you're going to be, because you don't want to get a 10,000 square foot office space or warehouse space, and then you need a 16,000 in a few weeks. Breaking them leases sucks, in a few months. But
I've always been I've been slow on big commitments and things like that, always. And it's served me well, because there's been several times, including we were in a huge growth phase, like a lot of people were just pre-COVID. And we were looking at some really major purchases, like $500,000 to $1 million type of purchases for our small company.
PA systems.
Yeah, that's another story for another day.
That's a separate conversation. But yeah.
Yes, it is. But we're looking at some very major stuff, and actually it's kind of fortunate that we didn't quite pull the trigger on it, because you never know when global shutdown happens, or similar happened. I was really kind of just getting started on my end in the 2008-2009 big economic crash.
Oh yeah.
And I remember, because we were mostly doing just backline at the time, and at the time, I mean, we were doing 2-3 backline gigs a week, just backline, and because it was such like a bubble, I guess, like there was so much money in the, like, no bands were bringing their gear with them.
Right. Yeah.
Because they didn't have to. They could just make the promoter pay the $3 or $4 grand to provide the backline, and so we had a nice little business model doing that. Well, when that happened, a lot of shows canceled. I don't know if you remember those days, but that caused a lot of events to cancel, because basically a lot of attendance dropped, because common people didn't have the money still, the everyday person. There were a lot of lost jobs, everything else. And so even as we came out of that, a lot of kind of the way that the bands were coming out of it is a lot of them started carrying their own backline as well, as like a value added type of thing, of like, hey, our fee is still 10 grand, but you don't have to pay the 2,500 for backline. We'll bring it behind our van.
Right.
So for like, that was one of those times. And now at that time, it was my side hustle still. It wasn't my, it wasn't full bore, my only income or anything. So it wasn't fun, but it wasn't like, I wasn't desperate, or it wasn't putting me in a bad spot. But, you never know, like that. Same thing 10 years prior to that, 9/11 was very similar for a lot of stuff. It shut a lot of stuff down. A lot of events canceled.
Yeah, I couldn't. Yeah,
so I mean, it's really been about every 10 years. There's just this, at least the last couple decades, there's just been a major thing that's put it like kind of a screeching halt.
So don't buy anything large in 2029.
That would be a good lesson.
Yeah, 2029, 2030, just.
But in general, I mean, the lesson is, bite off.
Yeah,
bite off the next thing. Don't do it out of an abundance of optimism. Just it's that balance of like realistic pessimism and optimism. So jumping around a little bit, but kind of on that topic. So if you were to go, like, what's one thing that you wish you would have known when you got started, or one thing that would have really, not even wish you would have known, like something that would have kind of accelerated you even more so, or saved you some major pain, that type of thing? I know a lot of those, whenever I ask this, I get a lot of, and I feel this way too, a lot of, well, I kind of had to go through that to grow, right? So there is a lot of that aspect, but if there's something that you wish somebody would have either like told you, or you innately knew, or something like that, is there something early on?
I think so in any company, whether it's lighting, whether it's staging, whether it's soft goods, whether it's linens, weeding through the people you really need to contact, like the people who make the decisions, that's what I would say is the biggest, that's really how you can expedite growth.
As far as, you mean getting to the decision makers?
Right, yeah, and I don't mean going to the owner. Yeah, from a client perspective.
Okay.
So
not wasting so much time on trying to sell.
Well, I don't want to say
wasting,
because, well, no, because a lot of those, and to any small companies, and actually any company in general, don't ever think, and this is one of the things I pride myself on, that nobody's ever too small, nobody's ever too big. Even though they're not a decision maker, some of those people that don't make decisions influence the people that make the decisions.
Oh, if you want to sell me something, you got to get through them first.
Right, exactly.
Like, you will never sell me if you don't get their ear first.
I don't, what I mean is, I'm not trying to say to discount them. I'm just saying, when I'm, like, certain people, if I could find out who that type of person they were in the beginning, and I don't want to necessarily say circumvent those people, but get to what they want, right? Maybe that's the avenue I would say, is really being genuine in the beginning of saying, hey, what can I provide from within my scope of products to help you grow quicker, right? Because as resources, we only grow when you grow. You grow when the clients that want you grow. And is getting to know you better and say, hey, what can I provide that makes your life easier, grow quicker, so on and so forth. And I think being transparent with your customer, product specialist, client, salesperson, each part of those kind of the intercompany dynamics within each segment or market segment, that you're growing in, is being transparent with everybody or having a good line of communication to what those things are. I think that is probably what I would say would kind of expedite. Would have made things easier.
So you started Swag with what was
Shane
your partner's name?
Myers.
With Shane.
Yep.
And you guys were pumping away, doing your thing, growing at a really rapid pace. And what kind of year was this? What was the time frame?
I think it was it 8 years? 14, 15, 16. Maybe 8 years-ish, give or take 6 to 8.
So 2012-ish?
Yeah, somewhere around there. It could
Interesting.
be,
That's when things were picking up for me a lot.
Right.
I think that was that recovery from the 2008, 2009, and events were coming back real strong. Because that's when I went from being like side hustle business was 2012, 2013 to like, oh, I need a warehouse. Oh, I need a bigger warehouse every year. It was like, oh, I need another truck. I need more.
Kind of like a quick insider thing, getting back to where we were deciding how, like, do you want to grow? Like, how crazy do you want to take this? Is we would have conversation, we talk about this still, is, there's times where we're like, you know what, we know the amount of money we need to make to everybody have their whatever, and life is good. And it's crazy how we went from thinking and talking about that, fast forward 4 years, to where we are making way more than that, but life is 10 times stressful, and we can't just sit on the beach or sit in the mountains and drink whatever you want to drink.
Right. Where to a degree, if you would have stayed closer to that point where you were at, you probably
we absolutely
you would have lived a nicer life with a little less money.
But that's where the key of that kind of like complacency, and I hate to use the word complacency, but that's where that kind of kicks in, is knowing what you're comfortable with. Is this what you want to stick with, or do you really want to grow? We provided a service that we found we were amazing at. And this might sound corny, but I think it was almost, we started chatting with ourselves and we're like, you know what? We're pretty awesome at this. Let's see what we can do. These people need this.
Let's go next level.
Let's do. And one of our first events we got when we really kind of grew, and we knew we're like, damn, we're kind of a big deal. We did the Victoria's Secret, one of the kind of satellite Victoria's Secret fashion shows. And we're like, wow. There's kind of this thing in my head is the kind of like we made it moment. So whenever this is starting, maybe 5 years into the industry, I always said that if I was able to do like the Golden Globes or Academy Awards or some huge premiere, that we did it, we had input and design and execution, and we had a part of that, I'd be like, wow, we're legit. On a national scale, we've made it.
We've made it.
Right,
You sit
we've
back,
made it.
you toast.
It's
like
this always thing. Yeah,
this
absolutely.
is where we always wanted to be.
And I'll get back to the swag thing, but to fast forward, we've done multiple award shows. We did the Lion King world premiere, and we just did the big Star Wars world premiere. And when you're there and kind of reflecting and seeing everything, and you're like, wow. Like that's to know where we were from a Dodge Ram 1500 hardware sticking out the back with a hamper that we had to offload to this, we're doing. It's awesome.
I still regularly have that. Even this weekend, we did a festival, and I don't think we had 1,000 people show up the whole weekend. But we just had a really nice setup, and it was like really well executed.
It's the small things, man.
And I just like sit back and like, dang, we did all this.
Right.
That's cool.
And
I feel that way even.
And
when
honestly,
we do smaller shows,
and because you do more of the production end than what Christy Lights does, but what I found being part of the production of the festival world, sometimes those smaller ones are more gratifying than 300,000 people, because this 300,000 is 300,000 people problems. So that's
there's definitely a fine balance for us. I mean, for our business model, at least up until this point, our real like goals and sweet spot was the 5 to 10,000 person event. To us, that was like, whoa, this is really big, but we can still pull it off and kill it, right? So 5 to 10,000 person, we were doing a college campus tour, some different stuff with, artists you've heard of, but not like, the Rolling Stones, or something, right? So for us, that was that like, okay, we've made it. This is on the higher end of my real desires as far as like the biggest problems I want to.
And also at the time, it might have been what your comfort zone. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You might have had the possibility of doing other ones, but what's the trade-off? What is something?
And then there's every. I feel like in this industry, every step that you take to the next level. So for years we did 1,000 to 2,500 person type events was our big end. When we went from even that to like 5,000 person type of concert events, it was almost like an exponential outlay of money and equipment. Like with every 5,000 people that you want to add to a show, it's almost exponential.
That's
the amount of money that it takes and equipment that it takes and labor and everything else. And it's really insane, like how quickly. So you try to do your 30,000 person festival, and it's like doing 10 of your 5,000 person festivals, even though the math doesn't quite.
Yeah, well, I mean,
it's crazy.
And it's even harder if you want to do all of it yourself. Right. I mean, that's why like these huge festivals, they kind of have multiple.
And that was something for me that I will say I've been good with that from the beginning. Is a huge chunk of our business is playing nice and teaming up with other companies, and we've always done that. And the big trick is finding those partnerships, people you want to work with. But the whole college campus tour we did, I basically hired the entire crew and a bunch of gear from another company for audio. So they were handling this part. We were doing lighting and video. But for us, it was like, okay, we could spend $300,000 on more PA for this, or we could hire it out for
which is what we were just talking about
for the entire run.
Make the money stretch.
Which is going to be better. And then we bought more LED wall with our profits and things like that, and we were able to grow it that way. So
there's something that I always live by, and especially some salespeople, hardcore salespeople might not necessarily agree with this, but I very much believe you grow, we grow in that term. And networking is such a big part of sales and business growth, but in life. But
so you want to kick business to people you like. But honestly,
it's not even about kicking business. It's understanding your limitations and knowing, say, hey, this person is good at this. Mm-hmm. I'll reach out to them. They'll take care of it. We'll grow together. And those, it's kind of organic.
Well, that's like when we worked together on Engage.
Oh, right, exactly. Yeah.
I think until something different happens, I'm like, hey, hit up Devin if we need stuff, because I know you've got a pile of gear. We've already talked. You'll work with me on stuff. It's like it's a give take type of thing.
Right.
I can throw business your way. It helps me not have to buy, $150,000 or whatever worth of strobes. And
which we got some video wall options coming up here. Well, talk about it all.
We'll talk about that later, yeah. But a lot of that, and sometimes, so people get into this, like, I think also negative thing with like, oh, it's cronyism and they're just giving their business to their buddy. But the reality is, would you rather work with someone, like we hit it off, we hung out a whole week at that show we did together, like, went shopping together. It was very fun. All that.
Find out a lot about people.
Hey man, we went clothes shopping together. It was great. My Gainesville swamp attire wasn't going to cut it at the fancy event. But anyway, my
the fanny
I did wear my
this
exact tie-dye shirt underneath the suit jacket.
Yeah, that was
my style. But ultimately, it's not even about like cronyism or anything like that. It's like there's 15 vendors in Orlando that I work with on a regular basis, and one of my favorites is CPR because Tim takes great care of me.
Burke is
one
awesome.
of the best.
Yeah,
one of the absolute. Shout out to him. He's going to be a guest one day.
Oh,
soon,
very cool. Yeah.
Tim is absolutely
Just spoke to him 2 days
one
ago,
of the best people in the industry to work with. Always has your back. Always will make it right. At the same time,
that's the key. Actually, what you just said. Sorry.
Yeah.
Is I don't want to interrupt you, but making it right.
Yeah.
When you find people, doesn't matter what the company is, but when a good company, you'll know, no matter the situation, they're going to make it right.
Yeah.
That's the key. Sorry, keep going. But that is a
we
big
rented
deal.
some gear for him one time for this big fancy wedding on the beach, and we rented just probably like 4 trunks of just ridiculous amounts of cable, and one got left off. And our driver was as much as fault as their warehouse was. But I called him. I'm panicking because I'm like, I don't have a van to get it from Vero Beach, from Orlando to Vero Beach, right? That's a long trek.
Yeah.
And they're like pumping out, and it's a high-end, like, you know, the covered pool,
Right,
like,
right.
fancy event. And Tim goes, hey, I got one guy left. He doesn't know anything, but he can drive. And he put it on, you know, on their dime, put a trunk on the van and ran it to me. And it's stuff like that that's like, I will always call him.
Right.
But at the same time, they don't have everything, you know? So it's like developing those relationships. And, you know, of course I'm going to go to him first. I'm going to go to you. I'm going to go to people that I like and kick it off working with that make it right, take care of it,
Right.
are thorough, and then I don't have to worry about, like, I know you're going to QC your gear. I know you're not sending me a bunch of stuff that hasn't been taken out of a case in 3 years. Like, you guys are taking good care. That doesn't mean I'll never get a piece of broken gear,
Right,
or I'll
yeah,
never, you know, be missing a cable, or a trunk won't get left on a dock. But it's about, like, what you do then. And it's a good general lesson. I try to teach this to my kids. It's not about whether or not you make mistakes. You will make mistakes. It's about what you do to make them right for people.
But
so
wrap
up
right
swag
on the
for me.
swag
Wrap up
end.
swag.
So grew. You know, we're fifth warehouse in. Remember when I was saying when swag was starting out, we had to buy fabric, right? In order for us to grow, we have to purchase fabric. Well, there's a small company, you know, that's national, that's called Rose Brand. Right, they're not a small company.
They're not small at all.
Right,
If you've ever shopped for
no,
any soft goods.
Rose Brand is, I mean, they are.
I would say every school from a elementary school, high school, college, performing arts center.
When it comes, and this is.
I think Rose Brand has probably put drapes in every single one.
This is by no means biased, but I'm telling you, Rose Brand is their. Talk about the
I have
fit
literally
finish.
never heard
Legit.
a bad thing
they're-
about Rose Brand from anybody ever.
Their quality control,
Yeah.
top to bottom, is well done. It's top notch. So as swag grew, we had to buy fabric from somewhere. We're buying from Rose Brand. Well, Rose Brand was about 5 years ago. They were kind of in a transition period where they wanted to kind of grow a little bit, and one of the biggest I don't want to say faults for Rose Brand, but one of the biggest things that they're missing is, and it's not in their business model, so I'm saying missing from my perspective, is they don't have a hands-on service. So they don't have a service that sets drape up, right? They're a dry hire main on the rental end, and then obviously everybody knows their sales goods. So when they reached out to us and said, hey, you know what's going on, and we were at that pivotal point where were we really going to grow? You know, were we going to deal with all the insurance? And, you know, once you get to like 13 people, 25 people, that world, like, there's a lot of things you got to start to take into account. And that's where kind of Shane.
Where I'm at right
yeah,
now. I'm
so
about
Shane,
20 people, and it definitely is changing rapidly. Yeah.
Right. So, and that's where kind of like Shane's kind of business savvy and everything really came in and started talking about it and thought it was the right move for, when you're growing and you have people's lives pretty much that are hanging in the balance of a company, I mean, you're accountable for a lot of that stuff, so it's a big deal. But kind of skipping ahead to that, decided to have to sell to Rose Brand, and the great thing with Rose Brand is they're a family-owned company. They're very down to earth. The owners, Josh and George, are phenomenal. There was almost literally like no beat. Like, we didn't skip a beat from swag to Rose Brand. Business as usual. They understood what we did. We understood what they did. And when we were actually in the meeting having everything finalized, I equated this. I said it was like Michael Jordan siding with Nike, because Rose Brand is Nike, and I still think swag is the leader when it comes to that type of specific luxury, soft good, special event, wedding, so on and so forth. And so it was a marriage made in heaven. It was perfect. And it allowed, from the Rose Brand end, it allowed Rose Brand to offer something else that they never offered before. From the swag end, it now backed a national, like swag had a national brand to haul all these other companies.
Right, that already had the systems in place to be a multi-office, large company.
Absolutely.
As well, yeah.
And they have a rental end. Rose Brand Rentals is a big deal.
Right.
So their model mixed with our model, we started to kind of make that work, and it just grew.
And so that's how far in is that?
We're year 6. I think this will be year 6.
And you're still a little bit involved,
So,
or you I think when we talked, you're about to be out the door
Technically,
completely.
Monday. What's today? Wednesday? Tuesday? Yesterday was my last day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was going to be Friday, but I had some inventory software
Yeah,
stuff.
you got to wrap it up.
Yeah,
You
inventory
can't just leave 'em
software.
hanging 6
Well,
years later.
this was going to be right. No, well, this was months ago. Technically, March was, but I like to make sure everything's wrapped up, and I'm still going to be touching up. I'm still going to get calls. I was actually on a call on the way here about an inventory issue, about one of our offices. So stuff like that. But yeah. Yesterday was I didn't actually say that out loud until just now. Yesterday was my last day, and which is a big deal. I don't think that's actually set in because, one, Shane. I've worked with Shane for in some capacity, 18 years.
Wow.
Every day, we've had some sort of communication. But yeah, so. After Swag just continuously grew, and then now Rose Brand, it's the same kind of concept. Swag runs independent of Rose Brand, but they kind of feed off of each other.
Hand in
Yeah,
hand
exactly.
Type of situation. So, the next thing we've been kind of doing that theme because it has been the theme of the last 18 months. But so yeah, COVID. How did you fare during the pandemic? How did your transition? It sounds like it might have been a bit of an impetus for fully transitioning.
So, 3 weeks before COVID affected us, I was literally getting ready to fly out to Texas to get the paperwork going on the lease of that Texas office.
For Swag.
For Rose Brand, yeah. So, I mean, there was a lot of stuff. We had.
So the Rose Brand deal was done, or the Swag Rose Brand deal was done at that point.
Sale?
Yeah.
Oh, that was years. Yeah.
Okay, so this has been a long transition
The
as
sale
you
to
stayed
Rose
on as
Brand
management.
was
sort of
5
thing.
years ago. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
in that we were growing the brand, growing different markets.
Okay, I got
and
you.
we just got busy nationally. We started to travel. We were traveling like crazy, whereas majority of the jobs were fairly focused to South Florida, Central Florida, and then where the other two offices, New Jersey-ish, Northeast, and then out west. We actually did a lot in Texas, which is hence the reason. But so we were getting ready to open that Texas office, and so my title with Rose Brand was Director of Market Development. So I managed all of the offices, managed their growth. I did client relationships, intermediary for sales to clients, dealt with operations just because growing up and creating a lot of the SOPs within the Swag and for the rental software, rental end. So literally, and I'm not even kidding, 2 to 3 weeks. My flight was already booked, getting ready to go, to get out there and get that going. The people that were getting ready to move out there, they were already looking at homes.
Oh, geez.
Like it was a big deal.
Yeah.
The person,
train had left the
person
station.
that I was that was going to run that office had already sold their house, wife,
my.
kids, like they had moved in with their parents because they were getting ready to transition. So it was a big, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
The Orlando office had gotten all the gear prepared and ready to go out there.
Right.
Things were already set aside. Orders were getting ready to be placed. And then COVID happened. And, like everybody else, we're like, all right, just COVID, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, we're going to shut down for a month.
We'll shut down, you know what I mean? I could really use a vacation because that month that was going to have before we were... So Swag was going to have, I think Rose Brand was already having the biggest, but Swag was going to have the largest 3 weeks that would eclipse, or it might have been 2 weeks, that would eclipse their largest month or 2 months ever. So COVID happened. We had to make the call, everybody, we're sorry. First set of let go, second set of, we're sorry. Then the furloughs happened. Then we were furloughed. Luckily, we were furloughed. Shane and myself were furloughed fairly quick, and then two of our salespeople. Well, we were furloughed in a short period of time. Sorry, not quickly.
Right, gotcha.
But one of the biggest things, and this is where I think people are going to dislike it. COVID was one of the best things that ever happened to me in my life. Like the COVID timeline, not
Right.
COVID itself. I've been very lucky. I haven't had COVID.
Understood.
So because of what I do, I travel a lot. So my wife, unfortunately or fortunately, she documents every day that I'm gone. For real. So, and I think
She's
I was
keeping
gone.
score?
Yeah. So I was gone
Your
over.
wife's a teacher, right?
Yeah, she's a teacher.
Okay.
So, and I was gone over 200 days
Oh, wow.
in 2019. think it was. And I was gone a lot in 2020, pre-COVID.
It's more than a Major League Baseball player, man.
Yeah, it was a lot. And it's not even like in the special event world, everybody knows this. It's not, and I keep saying special event, in the event world, because it's a huge, broad area, but it's not like you're going and then you have free time. Usually when you're going to an event, there's a lot of time involved in that. Mm-hmm. And then when you get back to the hotel, mentally you don't really want to call. So that was kind of the dynamic at the beginning of the relationship. By this point, she knew what, it was kind of commonplace, unfortunately. Yeah. But it was stressful growing a company, growing different people, transitioning the rental software. Because actually in 2019 we had transitioned into our rental software, got everybody to buy in on the RFID, and there's still the traditionalists who don't want it. Blah blah blah. Entirely different podcast that we could do. But there's just so many factors that going into it, just beside from being out of town, and it. Although I was growing in the business, like we were growing financially, whatever, you know what I mean? There's a point where financials aren't the greatest, when it comes to what's the worth, which is where we're getting into on the COVID end. But I was gone a lot, and I didn't realize how much of a detriment that was to my relationship. Not saying that we were on the verge of a divorce or anything like that, but I just was, there was a lot of what's the word I want to say? Not give and take, but we were what's another word for like hiding? We were turning a blind eye to some of the things that we were important to us, but just life was going on, and we thought that this was the norm.
Like it brushed aside.
Yeah. And I have 2 dogs, both of which are old. You know what I mean? That I deal with. We don't want children; those are our children. But I realized how much I enjoyed being with my wife. And if anybody knows me, there's a lot of reasons why I don't want children, but one of the main reasons, this could definitely be another topic, but one of the main reasons why I don't want children is I don't want to share my wife with anybody else. I married her. I love kids, whatever. I just don't want any. But
we talked about this before. I highly respect that. I feel like it's very self-aware, and it's very
I absolutely think childbirth is a miracle. Children are a miracle, absolutely. But I wanted to be with her, and I didn't realize how neglected is the word I wanted to say earlier.
Right.
I didn't realize how much I had neglected us, and I was home every day because she was a teacher. Schools are closed. Everything's virtual. She's home every day. So I mean, we had a year more, technically a year. That I was with her. We were doing things around the house, growing. We grew in our relationship, and we've been together for 14 years, 13 years, something like that. Yeah. So it's a big deal, to grow in that timeline. And I started to put my priorities in order, and in my head, and didn't write anything down, but just so. Kind of fast forward to 2021. The end of 2020, we started to get jobs. Little things were coming back. We had the virtual stuff. Some clients wanted soft goods and stuff like that. And Huntley, who's the owner of Christie Lights, was wanting to kind of grow his account reps, his rental reps, but kind of do it in a put a little bit of a younger vibe in. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And we were talking different things, and kind of pushed it off the side when we first spoke, because I grew swag, been with swag. I really love Rose Brand. I like what they have, with their trajectory. Everything
well,
is
it's
like
the same industry, but it's definitely a shift. It's
right?
Definitely a different
like
thing.
they're that's the world. I mean, I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life working at Rose Brand, but so that's why I said, what, thank you, but keep me in mind. We'll discuss things later on. And 2021 came, and we started to get busy. The world started to come back, and so on and so forth. And I found myself in the warehouse in Orlando. And I don't know how detailed you want me to be, but I don't mind. The truth is the truth. So I was in the warehouse in Orlando, and we have these, literally fabric pole covers, we call them. and they just literally cover, it's a decorative item that we add.
Yeah, it covers
to
the
make things-
upright.
exactly.
So it blends in, and you're not looking at shiny metal and whatever.
Exactly. And job just finished, and I'm wrapping them up, and it's like 150 degrees outside in the warehouse. And Shane came over, and we were talking about different things, and we started talking, and Huntley, the owner, had spoken to him, and I was like, you know what? Why don't maybe give him? Let's see what's up. Let's kind of. This was more of a friendly thing between Shane and I, because he knows what I'm about, and offline, I went and chatted with Huntley, and one thing grew, and he's like, you know what? Let's give this a try, and I realized that I wanted to work from home. Mm-hmm. I wanted to have that ability. I wanted to get back to the relationships that I enjoy. So from a sales perspective, any salesperson knows that the relationship you have with your client, I mean, that's honestly, at least from my end, that's why I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like, I like doing that end of it. And I had lost touch with that. I kind of lost touch with the clients because I was growing the company so much. So I was kind of disconnected. I was more internal, right? There's a big thing from an owner's perspective. Are you working in the company, or are you working on the company?
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's one of the factors to growth. So I just found that I wanted to be more involved in the relationship end, and I wanted to get back into sales. Mm-hmm. So all those factors. I had also, during that COVID time, we had closed some offices. We had closed our South Florida office.
Okay.
So I'm kind of reading the writing on the wall. COVID's, I don't know what the heck's going on. I don't know what's going on with Rose Brand. And I was like, you know what? Kind of rewinding quickly. A lot of my friends that were transitioning companies, people have been fired, furloughed, let go. Mm-hmm. They're reaching out to me, and I'm telling them, like, hey, listen, you have a new opportunity, or if there's something you want to do, or go back to school, or you want to weld or do something, do it. You know what I mean? Now's the time. If we're ever going to try something new, now's the time to do it. And when I was thinking about that work, in the warehouse, and I was like, you know what? I think I want to get back to this. I want to get back to do this. Mm-hmm. I miss the festival world. I miss concerts. Music is one of the biggest things in my life, personally. Yeah. And I think, kind of in a way, lighting, that may be one of the reasons why. I definitely enjoy it. I like the design of it, but I want no part of the design end. Sure. But I was.
Well, then you're at the right company, because you typically get the designer comes to you and says, "Here's all the crap I need."
Correct, and that's
Can
one
you
of
make
the.
This happen? Yeah.
That's what. So, like, in what I was just speaking about was the personal end. I wanted to work from home. I wanted the freedoms. Yeah. I love to travel. That's one of the biggest things in my life. This allows me to not have any territories. I can grow as much as I want.
But you're also not necessarily traveling 200 days of the year.
Correct, exactly.
Most of your work is still securing those client sales, and then you're servicing the big accounts by, like,
service being the key. Exactly.
Yeah, hey, I'm going out, 1 or 2 weekends a month to make sure that these big festivals are underway and everything's happening.
And another thing, and this is kind of one of the things that I spoke about with Huntley, because Huntley asked me, he's like, are you sure you want to leave? And there was a statement that I said in when you're, as well as I know, we just got done talking about the event we did down in South Florida. Working at 3 a.m. sucks. You know what I mean?
We got done at 6 a.m.
Yeah, well.
By the way. You left
I was
at 3
at my hotel by
yeah,
then.
yeah.
But I was there till like 4 something, I think.
I mean, the sun was rising as I was leaving.
Yeah, I was asleep by then.
But yeah, it was late.
So I've done that more times than I can imagine.
Yeah.
And it's part of the business. But I found myself, and this is what I told Huntley, and one of the reasons why, is I didn't realize that it got to a point where I was forced. Like, I had to be there at 3 a.m. in the morning. From the position I'm in now, I'm there because I want to be, not because I have to be. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the if you look at that in a bigger picture, one of the reasons why that's a big deal to me is from the account rep. And the reason I'm going to Christy Lights is a lot of the things that I'm doing are because I choose to do them, not because they have to be done.
Right.
And the freedoms, working from home, growing my network, growing Christy Lights, I really enjoy that aspect. And then also, they have zero footprint in I don't want to say zero. They don't have a small footprint in the film world. They have a tiny, like almost minuscule footprint in the special event, wedding, luxury, which is my bread and butter.
Right. And that's the show where we met.
Exactly.
Was all that
so
type of thing.
I wanted to kind of grow that end. And maybe being the entrepreneurial end in me is I like things from their infancy. I like the detail that comes in, which is why I like rental software, is that kind of the small details growing into a big picture. So then Swag got busy, so I had to put Christy Lights kind of on hold. I was still doing it, and I hadn't really told everybody yet. And I was borderline, kind of on the fence, but I knew that Christy Lights is where I wanted to be. And just both companies started to come back just like the rest of the world. And and that's kind of where we're at now.
So if you weren't doing this, so lighting in this point, sales, event production, let's take events altogether out of it. If you weren't doing anything in the live events or event production world, what would you be doing for a living, I guess?
So, that's a two-part. It depends on what avenue I would take. So I legitimately want to open like a bottle shop or like a lounge.
Okay.
In another country, but bring that kind of like American vibe to it. Like when I was speaking to you, earlier about Iceland, I legitimately would like to have a semi bed and breakfast. I don't necessarily want to wake up and make breakfast for anybody. More of a place to stay, but downstairs is a cool bottle shop, a cool beer shop, a cool place to hang out.
Right. Okay.
I just really enjoy hanging out. And I know that might sound...
Your dad's over here laughing. He's like,
that sounds funny, but like I think a lot of people lose, like that life happens so fast, they forget to hang out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's a real, I don't mean it to be like, oh yeah, hang out, whatever. I just mean like...
That's that Key West thing.
Yeah, I think sometimes people forget to just stop and chill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And stuff like that, just to kind of have an easier life. But... if I was able to kind of go back in time a little bit and go back to school, I would like to be like a marine architect. I'd like to design boats.
Oh, okay.
Legit.
Again, that Key West influence.
Legitimate. Yeah, I would like to design mid-size yachts. So maybe like power catamarans, anything from 37 to 70, 80.
Yeah.
I think if I could go back in time, I probably would do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to go to outer space, but I'm not going to be an astronaut. So
yeah, I mean
I don't know how
realistic
outlandish you want to do. Yeah,
I would hurl on like the thing that shape that goes round
you
and round.
never went to like space camp or anything?
Dude, I wanted to so bad.
Oh man,
no,
yeah.
I grew up in D.C. There was no space camp.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you had to come down here for space camp. It wasn't a thing. So what is a band or podcast that you're super into right now that people should know about?
Ooh, a band? I mean,
go for it. I know you're a big music guy.
Like I don't know. I'm pretty eclectic.
Go as obscure as you want. Go for it. I'm on a Jerry Jeff Walker old Texas country kick myself.
So, I don't know. It's all situational for me. I love Alabama Shakes.
Yeah.
That woman's voice is amazing. I also like the Vitamin String Quartet. So I don't know. So they're awesome. So
I think you were telling me about that.
Yeah, so they do a lot of covers of all different types of music, but they're all string instruments.
But they do like pop music and stuff as well.
Yeah, but it's all string instruments. So, the violin is my favorite instrument on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. Technically, the electric violin is pretty awesome. But bands, I mean, I don't know. Like,
well, you give me a few. What about a podcast? Are there any podcasts that you listen to?
Yeah,
because you drive around a lot. I feel like you got to listen to like some audiobooks and podcasts.
So,
because that's how I drive around. I only listen to. I will jam to music sometimes, mostly at the end of the day. But like during the day, I'm driving around. I listen to podcasts and books.
They're mainly, so I'm actually in the process of, I'm listening to the Bible. I'm doing am I saying that right? The Torah, right? Torah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing those. And then I mainly listen to Florida State podcasts. So I know in the Ville.
That's why you were avoiding the question, because you're in Gainesville, Florida right now.
But like the Nolecast is one of the big ones.
So I have, because we do the Gator tunnel lighting, I have 4 season tickets to the Gators, and I want you to come to the UF home game when we beat the shit out of Florida State this year in the swamp. So I want you to.
Oh yeah.
I want you to come.
It is in Gainesville.
Yeah,
this
we're
year.
in the swamp this year.
Oh man.
I would like you to be my personal guest.
Hey, I've come to the swamp a lot. Fortunately for me, there have been a lot of wins, not lately, but
I feel like no, it's early yet.
no, I think
feel like this is not going to be your year. So
No.
that's especially why I'm doubling down on inviting you. You got to come to the game this
we
year.
could have a separate podcast on sports, on
Yeah.
football, but
But
no,
you listen to a lot of FSU
I think
podcasts.
I just like sports in general. I mean,
And I'm just clowning, man. You know,
Yeah.
we're
I
in
think-
Gainesville.
But literally, if I
it's a fun rivalry.
I think Florida will win by 30, at least.
That's probably accurate.
I think that'll be. I mean, Louisville
We're kind of doing opposite
Miami beat us by
program
40.
things at the moment.
Yeah.
But,
Well, Florida State's on the rise. I mean, they got a lot of positive things going, but
it's still gonna be a few years.
college is very much the Jimmies and Joes.
Yeah.
So,
Right on. So where can people? So we'll wrap up. But where can
Okay.
people find you, connect with you? Do you have any social handle, anything like
So,
that
LinkedIn.
you want people to know about?
No. I'm transparent.
Leave me alone. I don't want to sell
No,
anything.
I'm transparent. So my LinkedIn's Devin Gregory. If you search Christy Lights, I think it pops up automatically with the algorithm. Instagram, social media, and I don't do too much of company stuff. If you want to talk beer, if you want to talk sports, or if you just want to talk in general, obviously you can tell from the last, I don't know how long we've been here, but I'm a talker.
I just saw the time when Daniel called, and I was like, "Oh shit,
I could do this
we're
all
gonna have
day.
to." I was gonna say we're gonna do this again.
No, so JDG The Natural on Instagram. Shout out to The Natural, my favorite movie. Or if you're gonna play some online Call of Duty, you can find me.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it. I don't really do too much on Facebook, but
Yeah, I do absolutely zero personal on
Yeah.
anything social.
That's
just my thing.
Mine's more of a
I wouldn't
visual.
do it if
Yeah.
it wasn't. Truthfully, I don't think I would have accounts if it wasn't for business stuff. I'm not knocking it. It's just not my personal style.
Well,
To publicly.
it's funny
put my
because
life, you know?
in the position I was in the past, I don't really need to grow myself, right? You know what I mean? So I didn't really have a direct. That's our salespeople in marketing department. But now LinkedIn is the key for me, and I'm just trying to reach out and just obviously broaden my network. So, but yeah, other than that,
Cool.
just give me a shout.
Christy Lights.
Christy Lights, officially.
With not GH, but just a TE. Right?
Yeah.
That's looking
I
forward
appreciate
to
it.
a lot of years. I think we finished.
I'm excited
both of
for
our
you
drinks,
guys. Yeah.
but Cheers.
Yeah.
And thanks for coming
I
on.
might have a little bit actually.
I'm out. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Cheerful Soundman podcast. If you like the show, it would be awesome if you could subscribe and leave a review on Apple or Spotify podcast. And follow us on Instagram at The Cheerful Soundman. That would make our day. Either way, thank you for tuning in, and we really hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully you got a little something out of it too. Can't wait until we get to share the next episode, which will drop next Tuesday. So stay tuned, and until then, don't suck and don't be a jerk.